The podcast you are about to listen to is an account of the movies which befell a group of horror fans, in particular, Tara Garwood and her intrepid friend, Matt Lolich. Had they lived very, very long lives, they could not have expected, although they would have wished, to see as much of the mad and macabre as we're to see in those movies. For them, an idyllic summer movie became a nightmare, and they loved it. The movies that they watched were to lead to the creation of one of the most terrifying podcasts in the annals of American history. The Scary Movie Project.
Hello, fellow fiends, and happy Mother's Day. This is the Scary Movie Project, the podcast where we talk about scary movies, and we don't keep all the spoilers in a dusty bedroom. I'm Tara.
And hello, I am Matt, as you probably already know. Well, today's episode, we want to talk about a new and altogether different screen excitement from one of the great directors of all time. We're talking about Alfred Hitchcock's 1960 classic, Psycho. Note that I will say off the bat is that even if you are not, well, you're listening to this because you like scary movies, but for those that don't, Psycho is a scary movie, but I believe it's one of the great American films probably ever made, just period. So
absolutely,
I'll just throw that out there.
And I think it can fall under horror, but can also fall under psychological thriller,
a mystery.
A mystery. You're right. Yeah, it defies categorization.
I also hate it defies gravity.
Oh, like Elphaba. I like the music theater
I just
note.
Wanted to drop that. It doesn't make any sense. I just wanted to say it.
It's a good music theater drop. I love it. So, we should make sure that people know that this is not the remake.
Oh, hell no.
We're
not
reviewing the original.
We'll
1960 original.
I'll say brief. I've seen it. It is basically a shot-for-shot remake by Gus Van Sant.
But in color.
In color. There is no purpose of it except he said it was an experiment, which critics basically said was an experiment gone horribly wrong because it is passed on by everyone.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I would believe it.
And it's tough to redo that with one of those classic films. So there were a lot of sequels of this too, which I hadn't seen any of those either. I think this movie stands alone by itself.
I heard the second sequel was good. I mean, the second one was good. The first sequel.
I haven't seen any of them. They might be good. I really don't know.
I've heard that Psycho 2 was good.
I do want to talk about not a movie, but another part of the media of the Psycho universe when we go later, though. I'll talk about that.
Okay. All right. So before we start, let me give you a couple little tidbits about the movie that might be cool to know before we get into the actual running through the whole thing itself. So first, Paramount Pictures gave Hitchcock a really small budget to work with because they didn't like the source material.
Right.
And they also deferred most of the box office take to him, too, because they thought the movie would fail. So when it became a hit, Hitchcock made a huge fortune off of it. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Even though it was a pretty cheap movie to make. And then the other thing that I thought was great that I found was there was this really ridiculous radio ad that they did, this short radio ad they did in the summer of 1960 before it came out. And so this was during this time, brands would talk about brand X to describe their competitors' products.
Sure.
So they would
brand
be like,
X.
brand X
right.
only
right.
cleans however much.
Right.
Our brand does blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
So he made one that said, it was Hitchcock's voice, and he said he wanted to compare his new movie with brand X. And then the sound of like a little horse neighing and like the clippity-cloppy sounds plays. And his voice simply says, brand X is a Western. Now for my picture.
Right.
Followed by a loud scream.
I like it.
And that was the whole commercial.
And that's funny because, Westerns were that was such a huge mainstream genre of film back then. Oh my God, John Wayne was killing it back then.
And just to use the sound, the audio, and then just like, here's my picture and a scream, and that's it.
That's like a perfect sign of the times for then. Yeah, that's so funny.
So good.
That's great.
Okay, so
was this also one of the movies that he did with the gimmick where you had to be in the theater before the movie started? Wasn't that part of the gimmick of this?
Yes, this was the movie.
Yeah.
He made a big deal out of it. You could not come. So movie theaters, in fact, I think this actually changed kind of the way that movie theaters operated because it used to be you would just come in whenever you got there.
Right.
And they would let you in whenever you got there and you would just watch until you left.
Right.
And so you might come in the middle of a movie and you might just walk into the middle of the movie and then just stay and watch the beginning of the movie and go. Or just leave when the movie ended. I don't know. But he made a big thing about not allowing people in. I think he even had like audio that they would play in the theater lobby where it would be like music and then it would be like 2 minutes till Psycho.
I like that.
1 minute till Psycho.
And that's
so
a great kind of just
people would get in there.
gimmick, to get you in. And that makes you kind of just more interested in it, I guess.
Yeah, and he had like this plea to the audience with it not to reveal the ending
Right.
to anyone who hadn't seen it yet. So
little stuff like that works. It's cool.
Yeah, he was a master of that stuff. I mean, he was a master of many things, but he was a master of that like marketing sort of
absolutely
angle too.
Absolutely.
So we start with the old-fashioned, to us at least, titles, right? And first thing I think of is the music. Like this music is so iconic.
Okay,
It's
so
so tense.
here's our quick jump into how we relate everything into music. Also,
Into music, sure.
for you rap fans out there, you gotta love the Busta Rhymes song, which I think is "Give Me Some More." They sample the Psycho track on that whole song. It's the one where look it up. Yeah, look it up. Just Google or YouTube Busta Rhymes Psycho. And it's the one where he starts talking about he got hit over the head when he was playing in the front yard and he was a shorty. And if you listen, it's the Psycho theme playing, and it plays throughout the whole.
Awesome.
He samples it through the whole track. Yeah.
That's so cool.
And Busta Rhymes, of course, did the Knight Rider sample too. So he's pretty hip on these deals.
Very
Yeah.
nice.
So there's your
so
connection there.
so great music that
Yes,
that
Bernard.
a lot of people
something.
have recognized as being great.
Oh, it's the best. And you know what? Doesn't it remind you of the Friday the 13th music though? Doesn't it sound just like that?
Well,
Parts of
I
it.
would say that the
Yes.
Friday the 13th music sounds like this music.
Right, they're kind of ripping that up. Bum 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 dun 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 dun. Yeah, that part where it gets fast like that is a lot like Friday the 13th, right?
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, I would say that.
Mm-hmm.
And then so they have this amazing title design too, where the lines come in
The
and out,
interlacing, yeah,
and the words like split.
yeah, it's perfect.
It all makes you so tense right out of the gate. Like you're already like, okay,
Yeah,
what are you gonna do to me, movie?
all on purpose. Yep.
Yep, it's so good. So after the titles, we get the slate: Phoenix, Arizona, Friday, December the 11th, 2:43 p.m.
I really wish they'd be more exact about time. You know,
Right, like they couldn't give me the seconds. Come on, how much more would that have taken?
time code. Come on.
Time code, yeah, frames. Come on.
Right.
Let's get with it here. So they have this wide shot of the city that slowly zooms into and through a window in a hotel where Marion Crane who's played by Janet Leigh. Sorry,
Okay.
my
I'm
mouth and my brain were not working
I'm gonna
together.
have two questions for you. I already have one, but keep going. 'Cause
Okay.
I hope you'll tee up the second part for me.
Okay, so she's just finishing a tryst with her boyfriend,
And what
as
is
I
her?
called a tryst.
I like that. And what is her boyfriend's name?
Her boyfriend's name is Sam Loomis.
Okay, good. So
Much like
So my questions were, it was a two-part question. Who is Janet Leigh's daughter?
Jamie Lee Curtis.
That's right. And who is the name of Michael Myers' psychiatrist in Halloween?
Samuel Loomis.
Yes. How
I
about
know,
that? John
it's so
Carpenter.
good.
John Carpenter likes his Psycho. So
He likes
that's,
Psycho.
That's like just a great little two-part. And then, okay, so I might as well throw it in there at this point then. So Halloween H2O, when Jamie Lee
Okay.
Curtis comes back, there's that scene where she turns around and she bumps into the, I guess it's the secretary of the school where she works. It's Janet Leigh.
Okay.
And that's her cameo. She's in it quickly. And she walks off and wishes her happy Halloween and gets in the old Ford car, the same car she drove in the movie Psycho. And they play like a little chain, kind of like an alterated version of the Psycho theme. So it's a great little, it has these tie-ins to Halloween, which is great. I love it.
Nice. Yeah. Very nice. Yeah, you would love that.
So next time you watch H2O,
yeah,
pay attention to that scene. That's pretty cool.
So she's just finishing in this movie.
Yes.
Marion Crane is just finishing a tryst with her boyfriend, and she tells him this is the last time. He's not having it, but she tells him she'll only see him respectably. And then he tells her when his ex-wife gets married, he can stop paying the alimony, and so then they can afford to get married. Right. She just wants to do it. She doesn't care, but he doesn't want her to be saddled with his debt. So they have this little argument about it. And then Marion goes back to work, and her co-worker, Carolyn, who is played by Patricia Hitchcock, who is, yes, Alfred Hitchcock's daughter.
There you go.
She is, she tells her that she has a headache. And she wants to leave work a little early. And so, her coworker offers her a Valium for her headache, which is just like kind of a funny, like, one-off thing. Mm-hmm. But it does set up that she has the headache and she's going to ask to go home early.
I love the guy that's in the office making the business deal with her boss.
Oh, yeah. So we're about to get there.
Because I love the one line that he says, yeah.
So as Marion walks in the office, though, before he gets there, that is where, so, Hitchcock has a cameo in every one of his movies.
Yep, that's right.
And he had it early in this movie because he didn't want to distract people from the whole plot. Like, because there's a lot going on and it's exciting.
Right.
So this is where his cameo is. He's standing with his back to the camera in a cowboy hat outside of the office that she's walking into the office. So the boss comes in with the client and he flirts shamelessly with Marion.
Oh yeah.
And he's buying a house for his daughter who's about to get married, and he's brought $40,000 cash with him. Mm-hmm. And so
I love his line when he comes in and he says, "Hot as fresh milk out there."
Hot as fresh milk out there. He has some funny little funny little jokes there. But so he's bought his money in cash, and the boss is really uncomfortable with that. Mm-hmm. So after the client leaves, he asks Marion to put the cash in a safe deposit box over the weekend, and then they'll give it back to the client and they'll ask for a check then. And Marion leaves early for her headache, but to put the money in the bank and then go home early. But then we see her at home and she's got the money laying on her bed in its envelope on her bed, and she's packing a suitcase. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And the next shot we see is her driving away. She's heading up to her boyfriend's with the cash. And this is interesting. So she's wearing, in the scene with her boyfriend, even though she's having she's clearly just had sex with her boyfriend, she is in a white bra and she has a white purse. Now that she's stolen the cash, when we see her later undressed, she's in a black bra, and she has her cash in a black purse this whole time.
Interesting.
So, thought that was pretty interesting.
No, I like that.
Now she's gone wrong.
Yes.
She's no longer pure.
That's right.
So she's driving away up to California where her boyfriend lives, because she's in Phoenix. She's driving up to I can't remember what city in California her boyfriend lives in, but she's driving up there. And she's like imagining her conversation with him as she goes. And then she starts to like nod off. And she basically falls asleep in her car on the side of the road.
Well, don't forget, back up, because I was going to mention one thing. Remember when she's leaving town, she's at the stoplight. And
oh, right. She sees her boss.
Her boss walks across the crosswalk. Now, that scene, to me, this is just me. Do you think when Quentin Tarantino made Pulp Fiction, remember when Bruce Willis's character Butch is in the car and he sees Ving Rhames' character walk by him? Do you remember that scene? I wonder if that scene when I see Psycho reminds me of that Pulp Fiction scene. So I wonder it has nothing to do with it, or if it's like Tarantino thinking, I love that, I'm going to use that.
I love that shot. I'm going to use
Yeah.
it. Maybe.
I don't know. Interesting. It just kind of reminds me of
I
it.
don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like it might be something that could happen.
But it's just coincidence. Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, coincidentally, but it also seems like it definitely he knows so much about movies. He
Right.
has so many movies like in his heart and brain that I think he could certainly have pulled it out of the Rolodex there.
That's what I think of when I see it, at least. So
Yeah, for sure. So she's fallen asleep in her car on the side of the road, and the next morning a police officer stops and checks on her, and she acts really weird. Like,
so that cop gives me the willies. He's scary.
he's scary, you think?
Yes, I am uncomfortable with him. I find him frightening, and I wonder if he was the inspiration for Robert Patrick's T-1000 character from Terminator 2.
That I kind of doubt, but I don't know. Maybe.
He's frightening. I don't know.
I didn't get that. I just got that he was.
I don't like him.
I just got that he was
A cop.
intimidating to her because she's acting so strange and he's
And
getting
maybe-
really suspicious.
And that's why I guess because I guess he comes across, to the audience, to me at least, he does, yeah.
Yeah, he's asking to see her license, and she shows it to him, and he lets her leave, but he keeps driving behind her, and she's really nervous until she sees him pull off at an exit.
Right.
But then she goes to a used car dealership to change her car for a different one.
Yeah.
And the police officer drives by again, recognizes her, and pulls over across the street and just stands there.
That's what I'm
and
saying. He just gets out and
watches.
just stands there. It's like, what is this dude doing? Don't you have anything to do?
I think he's trying to intimidate her because he thinks she's done something wrong.
He's doing his job, and actually the reality is he was right on, because he was right. She is up to something.
Hunch.
She is up
I
to
think
something.
he's like one of those detectives who gets the hunch.
And she had stolen 40 grand, so yeah.
Which was like 300 some thousand.
I was going to say
nowadays.
that's got to be around 300 grand, right?
Yeah, it's 300
Wow.
something.
Imagine stealing that much money in cash. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah. So she because she sees the police officer across the street, she pushes the car salesman
Oh my
to
God.
change cars
Like
right
10
away. And
minutes.
she pushes so hard that he starts wondering if she stole the car. I mean, she's literally the worst criminal who's ever lived.
She's pretty bad.
She's a bad criminal. She doesn't
is.
know what she's doing.
No.
And she can't keep her shit together.
No.
So as she's about to leave, the policeman pulls in, and she imagines the conversation as she drives away. She imagines the conversation between the police officer and the guy who she bought the car from.
And then she almost forgets her luggage. Remember, they got to give her luggage back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They got to
she's
give her her
just like,
luggage
"I'm
because she's
outta
about to
here."
leave without her luggage.
She's crazy.
Yeah, and then she imagines them having a conversation about her. Then
I
she
love
imagines
that.
her boss and her coworker talking about
And it goes
her.
on for a few minutes. Like
It goes on for a few minutes as she's just driving.
Yeah, I
and
love
you're
that.
hearing all this in voiceover. Her
Yes.
imagining them saying these things, and she's getting more and more anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And then it starts pouring rain, and she can't see well enough to drive, so she stops at a hotel, the Bates Motel.
I hear it's got great accommodations
Great accommodations.
if you want to die.
So no one is in the motel's front office at first. So she gets back in the car and she honks the horn. And this young man, who we'll later learn is Norman Bates, comes down from the house overlooking the motel and signs her in.
Yep.
Now, the Bates house, this was largely modeled on an oil painting at the Museum of Modern Art, or MoMA, in New York City.
I've seen this painting.
Okay, so it's called House by the Railroad.
Yep, I've seen
and
it.
it was
I've
done in
actually-
1925 by the American artist Edward Hopper.
I love Edward Hopper. Nighthawks is a great painting.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in MoMA in New York a few years ago, I went to see Starry Night for the first time. And I got to see it. It was beautiful. I got to see it in person. And I saw, the whatchamacallit painting. The
House
segment.
by the Railroad.
Yes. Yep.
So so it's almost like the way it's shown in the movie, it's almost identical to the painting.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So she signs in on the registry, right? She signs in with a fake name. And Norman goes for a room key, and his hand sort of hovers over number 3, and then he changes his mind and moves to and chooses number 1. He tells her it's closer to the office in case she needs anything.
Right.
Then he invites her to have dinner with him so she doesn't have to drive out to the diner.
Sandwiches and
sh-
milk.
Yep. He originally invites her to come up to the house.
Right.
and have dinner. And then when he leaves, Marion's like hiding the money, and she hides it in a newspaper, a folded up newspaper on the
nightstand.
On the nightstand. Thank you. That's the word, on the nightstand. Podcasters and words, they go together.
Sometimes.
So then she hears this woman's voice yelling at Norman and saying that no woman can come up to dinner and she's not going to take my son and all this stuff, all this crazy stuff. And him like arguing back like, but mother. And then Norman brings dinner down to Marion. And, you know, she worries that she's caused him trouble with his mom. And he's like, no, she's just not feeling herself tonight. And
he says, up. What does he say? What's the term? She's just not herself today. Yeah.
Yeah, she's just, what's the term? She's not herself today. And so they eat dinner in the parlor behind his office. The parlor, which is filled with stuffed birds.
All kinds of taxidermy.
And I love this part. He tells her, you eat like a bird, because she's not eating very much. And then he says, well, actually, the saying is a falsity because birds really eat a lot.
Right.
And he tells her that his hobby is taxidermy, but he only does it on birds because he thinks they're the only ones that like look right when they're done. And so, and he's like kind of charming in this really awkward, naive, like not great at social situations
he's just like
way.
A simple dude. Yeah.
Yeah. He just seems kind of sweet and just like not very like comfortable around people is all.
Yeah.
And at one point he tells her, I don't remember how they get on it, but they're talking about traps. And he says, you know, I think we're all in our own private traps. And he tells her that sometimes he'd like to leave his mother or at least talk back to her, but she's ill and her husband died. And then she met another man who convinced her to build this motel. And when he died, she couldn't go on. And he says, a son is a poor substitute for a lover.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. This famous lines. And of course, that's the line. And later, a boy's best friend is his mother, right? Isn't that what he says?
Yeah, a boy's best friend is his mother.
That's right.
And so Marion suggests sending the mother somewhere, and he gets really angry and very intense and goes off on her. And then it's like, she's as harmless as one of those stuffed birds, which, guys, if you don't know the punchline to this movie, I can't help you here.
Right.
But it makes sense, right? And then he says, she just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes. Haven't you?
That's right.
And she kind of tells him she needs to leave early because she's got to go back home. And she tells him, I stepped in a trap back there and I'd like to get myself out before it's too late. So we know now she's already decided that it was a stupid idea to try and steal this money. And she's going home to return it instead of continuing on to see her boyfriend with it.
Yep.
So she goes back to her room. Cabin number 1, as we remember.
Yes.
And Norman removes a painting from the parlor wall and watches her undress, which is where we see that she's in a black bra now.
He's a real prevert.
Yeah. He's a prevert.
He's one of them preverts.
He's a prevert.
Yeah.
And then he goes back up to the house. So now, interestingly, you'll like this, Matt. In order to implicate the viewers, like to make us feel more like voyeurs as well, Hitchcock used a 50 millimeter lens on his 35 millimeter camera.
I think I did hear this.
Which gives the closest approximation to human vision.
Yeah, how about that? That's pretty good, right?
So you can really feel it when Norman is spying on Marion.
It's pretty
you can
cool.
Like feel that.
Yeah.
Sort of.
I mean, you know, having
like you're seeing it.
The right lens for every shot, it's critical. It makes a difference.
Definitely makes a difference. So Marion sits in her hotel room and she's trying to figure out how she can pay back what she spent of the money she stole. So she's making these calculations on a piece of paper, and then she gets frustrated.
Here's
and
the thing that I thought was so, like, I know the point they're trying to make, but it was just so rudimentary. Because remember, she took $700 to give to the car dealership, right?
Yep.
So she had this amount of money, and she acts like she's going through this dramatic like calculation. It's just 40,000 minus 700. It's not that.
Well, no, but she also, remember, she did that for the car, but she also paid for the hotel.
Did she? Okay, I guess I forgot.
Yeah,
about
she
that
also
part.
paid for the hotel.
That makes sense.
So it's the
still
car and
like
the hotel.
It's not like doing your taxes, though.
But
anyway,
also, they're setting it up for later in the movie.
I know. It just seemed funny to me. That's all.
Yeah, it's definitely a setup.
Right.
So she makes her calculations on a piece of paper, and then she gets frustrated. She rips it up, and she flushes it down the toilet. Yep. This was the first American movie, and possibly the first fiction movie ever to show a toilet flushing on screen.
So that, I'm not sure I get. I mean, I guess I get it, but I don't get it. And then also I was going to backtrack a bit to where, in the vein of all these things that people have never seen, the movie starts out with, we don't see it, but we have people that just had sex. Like, no one had ever seen that in a movie. Oh, my God, you can't put that in a movie. Wow.
So apparently he put stuff in that was worse that he didn't care about having in the movie to, get because they had the Hays Code back then. So to get the Hays Code censors to, let some of the lighter stuff go, he put in more stuff than what he actually wanted.
Yeah.
So that the stuff that he felt was really pertinent to the movie would stay in.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah. So Marion gets in the shower, and we have this one shot, right, where you're looking up into the water stream of the shower head.
Yeah.
So Hitchcock had to do that. He had a 6-foot diameter shower head made up, and he blocked the central jets so that the water would spray in a cone past the camera lens without spraying any water directly at the lens.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So
sure
just total practical effects.
That probably took quite a while.
Practical.
It probably took a while to set up too, I bet. But that's awesome.
Oh, yeah, to get it just right, I bet.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So she's taken her shower, and behind the shower curtain, the door opens. We see a silhouette.
Mm-hmm.
And then the curtain gets pulled back, and it's an old woman with a knife.
Yeah.
And she stabs Marion to death, and Marion grabs the shower curtain, pulls it down very dramatically as she dies. And there's another great shot, the shot of the drain.
I don't like that shot.
Into her open, staring eye. I think that's so fantastic.
I mean, when I don't like it, I don't like looking inside of a drain. I don't really like that.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of gross. But no, I mean, the composition's great. I just don't like looking at the drain.
Yeah,
Stephen
so
King
cool.
talks about drains sometimes. It's just kind of gross.
Drains are scary.
They're gross. Yes, they're gross.
Drains, and they're gross. Yeah, P-traps are really gross, but that's a whole a whole plumbing thing, and we don't
we're
talk
not going to
about
go
that
there
in this show.
We're not going there.
So, also the shower scene features 77 different camera angles.
Yep.
And 50 cuts.
So that is right there, your top 3 probably most famous movie scenes ever. I would say top 3, right?
Sure, probably.
Yeah. If not to some people, the most famous movie scene of all time. When I'm in the shower, as much as I love movies, I actually never think about this scene. I never do. I did at one point own a shower curtain that had a silhouette of a person stabbing someone, which was pretty awesome. I never do think about that though. But I would
always see that shower curtain out of the corner of my eye and be like, shit.
All right.
What is that?
And we see the person. We don't see their face. It's darkened out. We don't see who it is.
Yep.
Yeah, a bunch of different shots.
We see the old lady, gray hair and bun.
And then we see her run away at the end. We see her just running out of the room.
Yep.
So the famous, chocolate syrup for the blood because it was black and white.
Yep, chocolate syrup.
Yeah, no, it's really well done. It's a little bit different than the book. I will not ruin the scene for you in the book though, because the book is a little. I have
not read the book yet, and I really want to read it.
They're pretty. It's really very faithful. There's just little things, like a little scene in the book that's different about that scene, but it's.
Well, apparently Norman is older in the book.
He doesn't look anything like the Norman Bates in the movie. Yeah, they're very different. Yes, but other than that, there's not a lot of difference, quite frankly.
So, the other thing I want to talk about in this scene. So, okay, there's a continuous shot, right, that goes from Marion's dead body in the shower.
Oh, it pans up, right?
And pans over, and then it goes to the newspaper.
Yes.
In her room that's hiding the rolled up money inside.
Right.
Then to the Bates house, through the window to the Bates house when Norman cries out.
Mother, oh, blood,
after his mother shows up with blood.
Oh, God.
So, this actually, they composited 3 different film segments for that. Cool. So it's not all one shot. It's 3 whole different things because the shower and the motel rooms were separate sets, and then the Bates house was on the back lot. So it was 3 separate non-contiguous locations.
And you see that in movies, and usually they do it. It's that they can put it together pretty seamlessly. It's pretty impressive how they do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And the other thing I want to say about the scene. So we have a lot to say about the scene because it's a really, really famous, iconic scene.
It's amazing.
Hi, I'm Carrie.
And I'm Emily.
And we're the hosts of A Dark Cup of History, a spin-off series to our regular podcast, A Nice Cup of History, where we dive headfirst into the weird and paranormal aspects of the world we all live in.
If you want to know your woman in red from your woman in white, or precautions to take against demonic dolls, and just where to go to find Black Shuck on a moonlit night, why not give us a listen?
Together we talk about the dark, creepy, and downright terrifying parts of our history and folklore, as well as what you should do if you ever encounter any of them.
Interested? Come and find us on Buzzsprout, Apple iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Pandora, iHeartRadio, and pretty much anywhere else you'll get your podcasts.
So turn on the lights, grab a blanket and some rock salt,
and let's get dark.
So Hitchcock originally envisioned the whole shower sequence as completely silent. But
I could see that.
The composer, his name is Bernard Herrmann.
That's right, Bernard Herrmann.
Bernard Herrmann. He went ahead and scored it anyway, and once he heard it, Hitchcock immediately changed his mind.
Sure. And I can see why. But yeah,
yeah.
Silent, that's, you know what, next time I watch it, I might just hit my mute and just see how that works. That's not a bad idea. I could see it that being just so dramatic and nothing else needed.
Music.
Oh, it's great. I mean, it's amazing, yeah.
I mean, it's
I can't think of it any differently.
Probably a good half of what makes the scene so effective and
talked about
memorable.
Look how many. I mean, look at Halloween without the Michael Myers music. My God, what would it be without it, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right.
So Norman runs into Marion's hotel room and he finds her dead, and he gets a mop and a bucket and he starts cleaning up. So really, now you're like, wait a minute. This guy's mom just killed someone, and his first instinct is to go get a mop and bucket and clean it up.
Mm-hmm.
Something's not right here.
Something's going on. And the cool thing, too, with this scene, the whole idea of the movie is, they killed off the main character 30 minutes or so into the movie.
Well, who you thought would be the main character, at least, because she's the famous actress.
Right. Exactly.
She's probably the biggest name in it, I think.
Oh, yeah. Well, Vera Miles, but whatever, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think Vera Miles was quite as big a name as she was at that point.
No, I don't think so.
So he starts cleaning up the blood, and he puts Marion's body on a shower curtain, drags it, bundles it up, puts it in the back of her car, in the trunk of her car. He gathers all her things. Everything goes in the trunk of her car. And he drives the car out to a swampy sort of lake.
A bog.
Yeah, sure, a bog.
Yeah.
And he shoves it in, and it part way submerges.
It just stops. I love
that. It just stops, and he gets really nervous.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it goes under the rest of the way.
Yeah. Whew. Oh, thank goodness.
I love that part.
Yep.
So now we're with Sam, Marion's boyfriend, at his shop, where he's in the back room and he's writing her a letter. And Marion's sister Lila has just come looking for her. Lila, as played by
Vera Miles.
Vera Miles. So
who is still alive, by the way. She's 95 years old, I think.
Really?
I think so. Anyway.
Well, cool.
Yeah, right?
Well, cool. Good for her. So she shows up. She's looking for Marion. And then a PI shows up. Detective Arbogast shows up.
William H. Macy plays him in the remake, by the way.
I can see that. Totally. I can totally see that.
Great
Very
actor,
much so.
Yeah.
So he wants to talk to about Marion and find the missing $40,000. And he tells them that Marion stole it. And Lila knows she didn't bank the money like she was supposed to. But I don't know if she's sure she stole it. She just knows she didn't bank it like she was supposed to. And Arbogast asks around town. So he goes and he leaves and he asks around town until he gets to the Bates Motel. And he shows Norman a photo and he asks if Marion was there. And Norman immediately says, no one has been here for a couple weeks. And then the PI insists on looking at the guest register and he matches her handwriting to the entry that she made.
Right, Norman just kind of an idiot because he starts talking about the light for the sign And he's, oh, I never turn it on except for if I hadn't a few weeks ago, this couple never would have shown up. And he's like,
Yeah,
oh, well,
yeah.
you just told me that no one's been here for a week. So he just
no one's been here
he
for
keeps
weeks, right? So he
stumbling
keeps
over
catching
himself,
him.
right?
And then he
an
sees
idiot.
her handwriting in the entry that she made in the guest book, and he's like, oh,
He has a
she's the last
sample.
name Samuels.
Yeah.
She's the last name Samuels. Her boyfriend's name is Samuel. And
This
yeah,
dude-
and it matches her handwriting. And Norman is like, he's a worse liar if it's at all possible
it's terrible.
than Marion is.
Yeah.
Like Marion's a horrible liar.
This PI is
and
no
Norman
joke, though.
is even worse.
He has the handwriting sample. Like, he came prepared.
Oh,
Like, he
he's
has
got
everything. He's good.
And he does not believe Norman. And I love
No.
this line he says. He says, if it doesn't gel, it ain't aspic. And this ain't gelling.
That's right.
I love it.
Yeah, that was good.
Aspic, by the way, is like, I think it's like Jell-O.
Yeah, it's just another brand or a term for it or something.
It's like it's like a term for Jell-O.
Yeah.
Or old-fashioned Jell-O or something of the sort.
Right.
So he asks Norman about the woman in the upstairs window of the house. Because Norman has already said no one else is here. And he says, well, what about the woman I saw in the upstairs window?
Keeps making up stupid lies again.
And that's when Norman's like, oh, my mother's an invalid, and he won't let him talk to her. And so finally Arbogast leaves, and he goes to a payphone, calls Lila, and he tells her that Marion was at the Bates Motel, that he's sure of it, and that he'll be back at Sam's shop in about an hour, so he's going to head back to the motel to talk to Norman again. So when he gets back there, no one's in the office, so he snoops around a bit in the parlor, and then he goes up to the house and he lets himself in. And as he heads upstairs, a door creeps open, and an old lady with a knife comes out, and surprise, she stabs him to death. Now,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to talk about the scene itself because that's my favorite. Well, the shower scene is great, but this is one of my favorite scenes of that movie.
So first of all, I'll say the sound of the knife, when it's penetrating flesh, the sound of the knife is actually the sound of a knife stabbing a cassava melon.
Okay, very good.
So that's what they did for that.
Interesting.
And then, do you know how they did the shot of him falling down the stairs?
So that's what I love because this scene is so cool because it has this overhead shot of the staircase and everything, and then it has this just completely surreal. Is it one of those like Zolly shots, where they call it, where it's the zoom and the dolly and you push it at the same time? Kind of, is that what that is?
Zolly or a dolly zoom.
Yes. So that it's this surreal shot. The overhead and that together are just two crazy angles that you don't ever see. And him just falling backwards like that. It's like in Vertigo, the scene when he's climbing the staircase, right? Yeah,
Well,
it's crazy.
Do you know how they did him falling back?
I don't know how they did it, no.
So here's how they did it. Okay. He's struggling to stay upright. Yeah.
Right.
And you see like him from the front flailing his arms around. But what they did was they had him do that, and at the same time they projected behind him footage they had already shot of rapidly going down the staircase.
Okay, that's genius. I love
so
it.
that was behind him, just
That's
being
a
projected as
great
he was
idea.
like waving his arms around, going, "Whoa!"
Oh my goodness, I never even thought of something like that. That is incredibly innovative.
That's how they did it.
Love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that works. That scene that's just crazy looking. Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's so cool, and I don't know how they made it work. Like, I feel like if you told me they were doing that to make that shot, I would be like, oh, I bet that looks so stupid and unrealistic.
I know,
But
right?
you watch it not knowing it, you'd
Awesome.
never guess.
It's great.
You would
yeah.
never guess.
Yeah, that's so
like,
cool.
Just watching it, like, as a viewer, wouldn't cross my mind.
Nope.
Okay, so back at Sam's shop, Lila insists on going to the motel to look for Arbogast. But Sam says, no, he'll go. She should stay there and wait in case Arbogast shows up. So Sam, walks around outside the motel. He's calling for Arbogast. Arbogast is a real tongue twister, by the way, to say.
Arbogast.
Yeah,
say it 3 times fast.
Arbogast. So he's calling for Arbogast as Norman stands by the lake where he submerged Marion's car, right? So clearly Norman also submerged Arbogast's body there. It's pretty obvious.
He's Dunsky.
Yeah, he's totally gone. And so Sam goes back to his shop, and he and Lyle decide they're going to go see the local deputy sheriff. I love this scene, too. The sheriff's wife is like the darlingest thing.
Right.
So they go to talk to the sheriff, and when they mention Norman's mother, the sheriff's wife she doesn't say anything, but she gets this look the first time they mention Norman's mother. She's so confused. Like, she just has this like, huh? kind of look on her face. And the sheriff is telling them he can't do anything, and that the PI probably didn't tell him he found Marion because he wanted to go after her and get the money. Like, he probably just lied to them, basically, and didn't bother telling them he found her. But they convinced the sheriff to call Norman and ask about the PI. And Norman says, yeah, well, he came by and then he left. And then when they get off the phone with him, the mother comes up again, and they say, well, are you sure it was his mother? And she says, well, yeah, that's what he said. And he says, Norman Bates' mother has been dead and buried in Green Lawn Cemetery for the past 10 years.
You're like,
so
what?
He says, so if that was Norman's mother, who's in the cemetery?
To quote a great YouTube video, I was like, what? I know, right?
But so this like whole like, if that was his mother, then who's in the cemetery is such a misdirect from
I love it. Yeah.
from the writers. I love it. So they tell her that Mrs. Bates poisoned the man she was involved with when she found out that he was married, and then she killed herself. So Norman goes up. Oh, so now we're back with Norman. He goes up to his mother's room, and he says he's going to have to hide her in the fruit cellar for a few days, and she just won't have it.
No.
She
Her
doesn't
voice
wanna
is
do it.
creepy. It's scary too, right?
Oh, that voice is 3 different women did her voice.
Is that right?
And
Okay.
they used them. I don't know if they how
That's
they
very cool.
stitched them together, but they somehow did.
Make it seem unnatural, yeah. Unnerving, if you will.
Yeah,
right.
they somehow stitched their voices together. So he just picks her up and he carries her down the stairs. And you see him carrying her down this bundle, and you hear her saying, like,
And
no,
that's that-
Norman, put me
that's
down,
That's
put me
that
down.
that same angle again. Oh, that overhead
That
angle.
overhead angle, right.
Yeah. Ugh, it's weird.
Right, so you don't actually see her face or her hands even or anything like that.
Right.
You just see her hair and her dress, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, back with Lila and Sam, they can't convince the sheriff or the deputy sheriff?
Sheriff's fine, yeah. Whatever.
Sheriff that something is fishy. They can't convince him. So Lila finally just insists on going again to the motel. And she and Sam go there together, and they register as a couple so they can search the place. Lila thinks that Norman killed Marion for the money. So they get in on this pretext, and then there's this whole bit where Norman, they want to sign the register and Norman doesn't want them to, and then the guy's like, well, I better because my boss is going to
paying.
want receipts and everything. And so so they get to sign it. And then there's the bit too where he says, okay, well, here's your room. And he's like, well, that's the first time I've ever heard someone, not want money up front. For
the bags or whatever.
Yeah, for someone traveling
$10.
without bags. Yeah, he's saying for
Right.
someone traveling without bags because they don't have any bags with them. He's like, that's the first time I've ever heard someone rent a room to people without bags, wink, wink, without asking for money. And he's like, oh yeah, $10.
Right.
So basically, they're now undercover as though they have gone there for an afternoon bang out session.
Bang out.
So they go and they go to search all the rooms, right? So basically, Sam is distracting Norman while Lila is looking for...
Sam's grilling him to death too.
Yeah.
He's
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, first they go search the rooms together. That's right. First they search the rooms together because they start with number 1.
Yep.
And that's when Lila finds the piece of paper that Marion did the figures on. She finds one scrap of it, and it says 40,000. And so she's like,
as if that would be the one she'd find.
she was here. Yeah, that's the one she found. That's the one that didn't get on the
Wow,
toilet.
that worked out pretty easily, didn't it? Yeah.
So now the plan is for Sam to distract Norman while Lila goes and looks around up in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So Lila goes to the house and upstairs to look for Mrs. Bates, and she doesn't find anything in Mrs. Bates' bedroom or in Norman's creepy child's room. And meanwhile, Sam is pressing Norman about the money.
Oh, he's grilling to death. Yeah.
Yeah, first he's being like chummy, and then he starts grilling him about the money. Norman realizes that Lila must be doing something.
Why don't you get rid of the
and he-
hotel? What are you doing? And
Yeah,
it's-
yeah. Like, what
and
are you
he's like,
doing here?
I think you should like leave right now, mister.
Yeah, he's like, I think you should. Well, then he like just cracks Sam on the head with a vase
Yes.
and runs up to the house.
Uh-huh.
And Lila, when he starts coming in the door, is like, oh crap. And so she goes to hide in the cellar.
I love that shot too when he comes in the door and that wide shot of you get to see him coming in, but she's like crouched
She's
down
like
and hiding
crouched down, like
underneath the stairs.
Yeah,
That was great.
Underneath, so it's like the stairs that go up and the stairs that go down are underneath the stairs that go up. So she's like
Little
behind
crawl
the
space, kind of-
balustrade there,
It's like a cubby.
like hiding, and she like climbs down into the cellar,
Right.
and she that's when she sees Mrs. Bates sitting facing away from her,
Yeah.
and as she gets closer, the chair goes and turns around, and Mrs. Bates is a mummified corpse, y'all.
She
You never
sure
saw
is.
it coming. Well,
She
you didn't
is-
if you saw this when it first came out. You did
She's-
not see this coming.
Deader than dead.
Yeah, so she is completely dead. This is like, I can't imagine like the theaters when this first came out.
And that's one thing I always think about too. I mean, when I saw, and you know, the first time I saw it, it got me, of course. But yeah, I just can't imagine being, you know, of 20 or 30 or whatever years old in 1960 and seeing that. Like, wow, that's
Yeah, just being like,
Oh my
what
God.
the hell just happened
Right.
here? Like,
yeah.
then who's doing it? So then Norman runs in his mother's clothes and wielding a knife, which,
And-
how did he get into those clothes so quickly?
He's like Superman. He just does it. You know
It's
what?
underneath his clothes.
That
His
scene is
regular-
scary. Like, I know it might be kind of cheesy, but when I see that, frightens me. Like,
No.
that is scary.
No, Anthony Perkins, by the way, Norman
That
was
was
played by Anthony
Anthony
Perkins.
Perkins,
He's
that's right.
scary.
Yes, he was creeping me out when he comes in with that crazy look on his face with the knife.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God, he's
whoa,
really good at
dude.
it. Like,
yeah, like you're
he's
creeping me out.
really good at the sweet, like innocent seeming sort of doofus, and then he's
Yes.
also really good at the creepy, like.
Now I will say, and we weren't going to touch on it again, but Vince Vaughn plays Norman Bates in the remake,
Yeah.
and when he plays the kind of like goofy hotel guy when he's being asked all those questions, he's pretty good at it. I will give the remake that part of it. So
Okay, all right. So Norman has just run in wearing his mother's clothes and wielding a knife, but Sam runs in right behind him, and he manages
Saves
to
the
wrestle
day.
the knife away.
that's right.
And oh, by the way, before we move on from this, here's another tidbit.
Okay.
So Hitchcock didn't give everybody didn't give the cast the end of the script
Good.
until they were getting ready to shoot it, so that they wouldn't know.
Good.
Like, so because he didn't want it to get
Yeah,
leaked.
that's awesome.
And he had a chair on set that said Mrs. Bates on the back, like a little director's, the
Uh-huh,
fold-out
yeah.
chairs.
Sure.
He got one of those that said Mrs. Bates because he had them, you had them for all the actors, and then he
Right.
had one for Mrs. Bates. And so, like, everybody was just like,
Where is
who's
she?
going to play Mrs. Bates? Who's
Right.
going to play her? And they didn't realize
great.
it was just to trick them.
That's awesome. Well done.
Yeah. So now they're at the police station, and the psychiatrist, Dr. Richmond, is telling everyone sort of that he got the whole story, not from Norman,
I love that. Yeah.
but from his mother.
That is such a great line.
So apparently it turns out he has this like long speech, which is
It's
kind
great.
of,
I like
it's
it.
good, but it's kind of like, I don't know, it seems a little unnecessarily long, but
Fair enough.
but it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's good.
He does a great job delivering it. It
I think
just
he's-
seems like
yeah.
this is a lot of like exposition at the end here, guys.
Sure.
So he talks about Norman apparently has already killed a couple of other young girls as well. He had been disturbed since his father died, and when a
Disturbed,
new
I
man
like that.
came along,
Troubled.
he killed the new man and his mother both. So
Yeah.
the story that the sheriff knew about the mother killing the boyfriend and then herself is not true.
Nope, all
Norman
made up.
killed the boyfriend and the mother.
That's right.
So, and then to erase the crime, he had to erase the crime, at least in his own mind, by stealing his mother's corpse. And then when that wasn't enough, having her there wasn't enough, he became her. And so then we see a police officer bringing Norman a blanket. And we hear a woman's voice say, "Thank you."
Yes, when he walks out of the room and he closes the door, you hear the woman's voice say, "Yes,
Thank
yes."
you.
That is creepy.
And then we see Norman sitting in the holding cell, and he's thinking, like, as mother in voiceover, how sad it is that she had to turn in her own son, and how they have to know she couldn't have done anything. Why, she couldn't even hurt a fly. I'll just sit here. I won't touch that fly in my hand, and they'll say, why, she couldn't even hurt a fly. And then he smiles this creepy smile.
It's great.
Which fades briefly into the mother's corpse face. And then we see Marion's car being pulled up from the lake.
Yep.
And that's the end of the movie.
That's it. Yeah.
So okay. After this movie came out, Hitchcock got an angry letter from a man whose daughter refused to have a bath after seeing Diabolique, which came out in 1955, and which he apparently kind of, he loved and kind of like wanted to sort of recapture some of that with this. And she now refused to have a shower after seeing Psycho.
Yeah.
And Hitchcock sent a note back simply saying, send her to the dry cleaners.
Wow.
So this movie, by the way, was in black and white.
Yes.
As we've mentioned at the beginning. And one of the reasons was that he thought it would be too gory in color, but also he wanted to make the movie really inexpensively. And so the black and white film was less expensive.
Sure.
And he wondered, like, if so many bad, inexpensively made black and white B movies, like now that they had color movies, like there were these cheap B movies that were made black and white. And he thought, well, if those bad movies can do pretty well at the box office, like how well could a good black and white movie do?
Right.
So those were apparently his like reasons for doing it that way.
Okay. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah. This is, it like I said, it's one of the most famous movies ever, regardless of the genre.
It's in a lot of top 100 lists.
Oh God. It's incredibly famous. And, a lot of great things for it. I mean, it was more violence than anyone had ever seen at that point.
Yep.
It has, two people having sex, they never showed things like that.
Well, they didn't show them having sex.
Well, okay,
they just showed them in the aftermath.
But even that, no one had seen that.
As they're getting dressed again. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, they didn't even do that in movies. So it breaks a lot, and it's suspenseful and it's tense and has a great story. Yeah, I mean, it's
and such a switcheroony at the end there, where you're like, wait, what? She's dead?
I know.
Like,
no, it really is a
like
landmark.
now that's sort of a standard. You expect that kind of flip, but back then that was new.
It's a landmark. Yeah, it was a game-changing film in so many reasons. It just did so much to change things, and that is all him. That is all Alfred Hitchcock. He was a genius when it came to that stuff.
He was a genius. He was apparently kind of a dick, but he was a genius.
I'm sure he was.
Oh, he was apparently horrible to his actors and actresses.
I'm sure. Well, he got the results he needed to get. So in the end,
he made some great film.
He really did. There was one random question I had that I don't know if anyone else notices this. When Marion gets out of her car and when Arbogast, the detective, gets out, can someone explain why they get out on the passenger side of their cars? Did you notice this?
I think I noticed her getting in on the passenger side of her car at one point.
She got out in the rain in the maybe okay, so you don't have to get wet. That's still weird. But when Arbogast gets to the hotel, he parks the car, stops the car, and gets out the passenger side door.
Well, if you think about it,
why would you do that?
So they didn't.
I don't
have
get out of my
bucket
car in the
seats
passenger
back
side.
then, though. But they didn't have bucket seats, so you could
They had
just
the bench.
slide across really easily.
They had the bench seats. Okay, I guess that's the
So
only
maybe
reason.
you would just get out whichever side was closest to where you were going, because it's a bench seat. You just slide to whichever way you're going.
Yeah, okay. Like that's the only thing I can possibly think of that makes any sense.
That's all I can think of. Yeah,
that's all I got.
I mean, that's kind of a thin.
It's weird.
A thin.
No,
theory
but it makes
there, but
it makes
it's
sense.
all I can think of.
It makes sense to me. So Warner Brothers or Universal Studios, right? Whenever you go on the tour, the motel and the house are still there. So that's part of the tour.
Yep.
You can still go see that whenever you want, which is very cool. I have not done that. I would love to, though. That sounds like it'd be a lot of fun. And so I was going to mention also the remake, the sequels. So if you haven't, you need to see Bates Motel. the television program.
Oh, the television show is so good.
Yeah. So it's basically a loose prequel to Psycho.
Yeah.
Vera Farmiga and Freddie Highmore. And they,
So good.
the mother, Norma Bates is her name.
Yes.
And they move from Arizona, where their father died. We don't really know the details of that yet. And they buy a hotel. This time it's in Oregon instead of California.
Yeah.
And it's the Bates Motel. And it's about 4 or 5 seasons, I think.
Such a good.
It was
it's
excellent.
Such
So
a good TV show.
it's loosely based on that. It takes its own liberties, of course, and makes its own television show out of it. But then a lot of it, the last season, has to deal with the actual events of the movie, which is cool.
Yeah.
So they kind of just took a bunch of pieces of the movie and mixed them up throughout the seasons.
Yeah.
And I thought it was great. I loved it. I think you can watch it probably on.
And he has
A&E
a brother
or-
in the TV show too. He has
Yes.
an older brother.
Yep.
Who I
lots
love.
of different storylines. And you can probably watch it on Hulu or Netflix or something nowadays, I think.
Yeah,
But
something like that.
yeah, it was on A&E.
I
It was great.
definitely,
I loved it.
I would say,
I loved it.
definitely recommend watching the movie Psycho if you haven't seen it.
Oh,
And if you
yeah.
have, hell, watch it again. It's
Yeah.
worth it's worth any number of viewings.
Yes,
and
excellent.
yeah, totally recommend the TV show Bates Motel. It's
Bates
so
Motel.
good.
Yep, great show. Loved it. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. But yeah, totally totally groundbreaking film that, I don't care if you don't like horror or not. You're gonna I certainly hope you like this movie because it's just a incredible movie.
I hope that if nothing else you could appreciate it like
Yeah.
anyone could appreciate it. I think
Yeah.
the importance of the movie in American filmmaking
Right,
and really
exactly.
all filmmaking all over the world.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely everything he did had not been done. Like pretty much everything. Like we said, from showing the violence, from showing the right after the people had sex. Just
Flushing a toilet.
right, the toilet. The whole storyline. I mean, everything was new. Everything had not been done. He did all this stuff, and it's one thing to like take one or two of these things. He did all these things in one piece. It was incredible.
Yeah,
Incredible.
It's so good.
Yeah, really, really great.
I mean, we could just sit here and say how good it is forever, but
Oh,
there's probably no need to do that.
Read the book by Robert Bloch, and this is the one
Yes.
thing that I find, and I'm not sure, maybe I read this wrong, maybe I got this part wrong, but Robert Bloch is from Wisconsin, and he wrote this book right after the crimes of Ed Gein. I think we talked about Ed Gein when we did Chainsaw Massacre. For those, Ed Gein was a dude in Wisconsin who basically was a real-life Norman Bates.
Yeah.
He really dug up his mother. He had a shrine to her in his house and stuff like that. Now, Robert Bloch claims he didn't know this when he wrote it. Maybe I'm getting that wrong because there's no way you can write a book like that when something like that is actually happening in real life. Maybe I'm getting my facts wrong here. But, Ed Gein is your inspiration for Chainsaw. He's your inspiration for Psycho, Silence of the Lambs. Anytime some crazy person and their mother complex, that's who you can thank for that. So look up Ed Gein, Gein sometime, and you can find out he was a real-life Norman Bates. He was a real-life boogeyman. Really fascinating stuff to read about him. But yeah, he's the pretty much big-time inspiration for this.
Yeah, cool. I think you are right about that. I think that he is inspiration for it. Whether Bloch says he is or not, I think he is.
And again, maybe I had that wrong, but he's definitely the reason for many movies of stuff that you see.
Very nice. Oh, and I'll throw in one last tidbit of trivia here. Walt Disney refused to allow Hitchcock to film at Disneyland in the early 60s because he had made that disgusting movie Psycho.
Yeah. All these movies get those stupid bad raps, and then 20, 30 years later, people realize how amazing they were. That's right.
Yep. So Walt Disney thought it was a disgusting movie.
Yeah. Oh, well.
And by today's standards, it is so tame by today.
Lots of people have their own opinions of Walt Disney, so we'll leave that
yeah,
alone.
that's we are not a Walt Disney podcast.
Or not. That would take too long.
Not a Disney podcast. That would be a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so guys, next up, Jaws. Our summer's here.
Jaws.
Extravaganza. We will be
Jaws.
reviewing Jaws with our guest, Brianne Davis, who you may remember from our episode on prom night, which she co-starred in. So very excited about that. And hopefully you guys will enjoy hearing her come back. It's one of her favorite movies, so we're very
Yes.
excited to have her here to
I'm
talk
excited.
about it with us.
Yes.
I am really excited to watch it again. It's been a very long time.
Jaws is. I had an obsession with it for a while years ago. I watched it like 10 times in like a span of like 3 weeks. Yeah,
It's
I was
been so
obsessed.
long since I've seen it, so I'm very excited. Anyways, okay. Please, everybody, subscribe to our podcast for free. It's free. You can do it on any podcast app. No dollar bills, y'all.
Yeah.
It's completely free. I don't know where that came from. No dollar bills,
Free-
y'all. I
free-
don't even know where I got that.
You got it from Dollar Bill, y'all.
Dollar bill, y'all. That is where I got it.
That's
okay.
where you got it from. And it's free dollars and free cents.
Free dollars and free cents, guys. Subscribe to the podcast.
Best
and
price going.
Rate and review it, please, on iTunes, on Spotify, on Stitcher. I don't know, wherever you listen. If
Your
you
local
can review
newspaper.
there, please do. Your local newspaper. Tell them about us.
Yeah.
You know, give them our email. We'll talk to them. Love to do an interview. Rue Morgue magazine. Would love to do an interview there.
Fangoria.
Fangoria.
Yes.
Tell them about us, guys. No,
Horror
just
Hound.
Tell your friends about us if they like horror.
That's right. Spread the word.
We would love to get more listeners out here and spread our movie love with the whole world. Even though we do have some worldwide listeners, which we're very excited about. So thank you guys.
More.
Most of our listeners are in the US, that's where we are, but we have some listeners from all over the world, which we're very excited about. And we love you guys, our international listeners.
Yes.
And don't forget, you can email us at thescarymovieproject@gmail.com with your movie suggestions for us to review, your thoughts on the movies we've watched so far, any old thing like that. And you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Scary Movie Project. Peace out.
Don't forget to spay and neuter your pets.
The Scary Movie Project podcast is produced by Tara Garwood and Matt Lolich. Learn more at thescarymovieproject.com.